The Audi Q3 is quite a popular SUV, and it's now available as a plug-in hybrid. To be more specific, it's the 45 TFSI, which we have on review and in the UK. Prices start from roughly £44,500. That is, of course, without adding any additional options, and that is a bit of a premium over the regular petrol model. So in this review, you can see if it's actually worth this price tag and how it performs across the board. So to kick things off, let's talk about efficiency. Here you've got a 13 kilowatt hour gross or 10.4 kilowatt hour net battery pack that supposedly gives you 31 miles on the WLTP test cycle. Realistically, however, you should expect roughly 25 miles. At least that is what I was able to achieve. Now indeed, the Q3 TFSI can be driven in auto hybrid mode and also pure electric mode, which can be quite handy. Better still, you've even got the ability of retaining the battery charge if you want to use it at a later drive or a date, and also the ability of self-charging, which can be also pretty useful if you're frequenting the motorway and then before you approach a city or town, you won't be emitting any sort of harmful fumes. So good thinking from the manufacturer. Now, Audi actually claim a ridiculous 150 to 180 miles per gallon, and that's probably due to the fact that you'll majority be driving in pure electric mode. But realistically, in mixed driving conditions, you'll be able to net roughly 35 to 40 miles per gallon. At least that is what I was able to achieve, and you can see over here how it compares to some of the other hybrid vehicles that I've tested, be it full hybrids or indeed those which have got that plug-in function like the Q3 TFSI. And yes, this means that the Audi is actually quite disappointing in comparison to what else you can find out there on the market. Equally, the Audi houses a 3.6 kilowatt onboard charger, which means it'll take a whopping 4 hours to attain a full charge from empty. That's quite disheartening considering the fact that some of its cheaper competitors offer a 7, 11 or even 22 kilowatt onboard charger, be it available as an option or indeed fitted as standard. Alas, that's not the case in the Q3 TFSI. Now, as for total driving range, with a fully topped up petrol tank which sits at 45 litres and also that battery pack, you should be able to net roughly 300 miles without having to stop to refuel or recharge. So with all that out of the way, let's get on to performance. And here at the front you have got a 1.4 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine which drives the front wheels only. Combined with its battery pack, it will have an output of 180 kilowatts or 241 horsepower and 400 newton meters of torque. 250 newton meters are directly from the engine itself, while in terms of its EV portion, you have got 85 kilowatts of power or 114 horsepower and 330 newton meters of torque. Now, combined in the auto hybrid mode and in its dynamic preset, I had it tested using Race Logic's Performance Box Touch. From 0 to 20 miles an hour in 2.76 seconds, 0 to 30 miles an hour in 3.66 seconds, 0 to 60 miles an hour in 7.52 seconds, and 50 to 70 miles an hour in 3.1 seconds. I also clocked in a peak acceleration of 0.58 Gs. As for top speed, it is capped at 130.5 miles an hour or 210 kilometers an hour, and while in EV mode only, this will actually be limited to 87 miles an hour or 140 kilometers an hour. Now indeed, the Q3 TFSI packs a bit of a punch, but it is worth mentioning again that it only drives the front wheels and therefore can't quite compete with some of the alternatives out there on the market which offer an all-wheel drive configuration. As such, when you're driving on trickier tarmac or indeed if it rains, then you might have a little bit of a loss of traction. So just be mindful about that, specifically if you're very fruitful on the accelerator pedal. Now, what I do love, however, is its dual clutch 6-speed S-tronic transmission. It's absolutely excellent, super smooth, and can also be adjusted manually using the gear lever, of course, if you shift it to the left. Most people will probably want to just run it on its default configuration and just tinker around with the different drive modes that are available. For example, the dynamic preset, which tightens up the accelerator response and also the steering wheel. Now, as for the suspension system, it is also very good. It's been tuned to perfection, at least in my opinion. You've got a McPherson struts at the front and a 4-link rear axle system at the rear. And the combination means that you're not going to suffer from too much body roll when you're going around winding country roads. And you're also going to be able to soak up a lot of those anomalies, speed bumps and potholes when you're pottering around town. I would also like to say that the overall driver's feel, given it is an Audi after all, is actually pretty good. Sure enough, it won't compete with some sportier alternatives out there, but in the grand scheme of things, the Q3 TFSI does feel actually very engaging, at least for most consumers who are going to be driving around those winding country roads. Another important factor when it comes to the overall driving experience is low cabin noise, and here the Q3 TFSI actually does do a pretty decent job, both at lower and higher speeds. This is also in part thanks to the fact that the manufacturer has actually used good quality materials. Indeed, you have got that premium look and feel, with the use of a twin leather design when it comes to the upholstery, nice materials that have been used towards the dashboard, the door trims, and even in terms of the steering wheel. And just to top it off, you've even got a practical design too, with the use of physical buttons on the steering wheel, by the center console, with a few shortcut buttons found towards the dashboards, and even a dedicated climate control menu, which isn't the same that could be said about some of its key competitors, which omit these altogether, therefore making them a little less practical to use, specifically when you're on the move. On that note, if you do want to display any extra information, you'll be able to see them via the 10.1-inch fully digitalized display. The infotainment system is very responsive and intuitively laid out. It also supports Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, both over a wired and wireless connection, which is very much appreciated in this modern era. It is a shame, however, that these third-party mobile operating systems do not feed through any turn-based navigation data to your 10.25-inch fully digitalized instrument cluster, which is quite a missed trick, at least in my opinion. Nonetheless, the instrument cluster will provide you all the key information that you require and is somewhat customizable. On the flip side, it is a shame that you do not have a head-up display, be it featured as standard in the more expensive trim levels or indeed available as an option. With that said, it's great to see that Audi has thought about those people who actually love their music, because you have got the ability of upgrading this 6-speaker system to a 15-speaker Sonos configuration that outputs 680 watts. This is comprised within the £1,395 technology pack. The Sonos system does do relatively well across the sound frequency range, but won't exactly be that appealing to certain audiophiles. If you want some more information about the Sonos audio system and if you should or shouldn't upgrade, make sure you check out my detailed audio review that can be found up on your pop-up banner, down the description below, or indeed in the pinned comments. Speaking about the technology pack, within it you'll find a wireless charger, which indeed I do find is somewhat ridiculous that is not included as standard across the entire trim range. Nonetheless, you'll find this at the front of the center console. Now this does actually bring me onto storage, and here you'll find two USB Type-C ports which will be used to connect up to the infotainment system or provide charge. Then further down the center console you'll find two cup holders, a small little area which can be handy for placing, let's say, your key fob, and then you've also got a small compartment found within the center armrest which is movable. Then you've got the glove box, which is sizable and has been optimized for right-hand drive vehicles. And then you've also got the door bins, where the front two have actually been lined in a non-slip material, which is very much appreciated. They'll also accommodate a 500ml bottle with ease alongside some valuables. At the rear, the door bins are unsurprisingly a little bit more limited, but you have got a pull-down armrest compartment, which also reveals two cup holders. Aside from storage within the cabin, you have of course got its boot, and here you've got 380 litres to play around with, or if you drop down the seats, 1,375 litres. It's not exactly class-leading figures, but it should certainly suffice for most consumers, for example those doing their weekly shops. Now in terms of the overall practicality, it's great to see that you've got an electric tailgate that comes fitted as standard across the entire trim range, a hatchback design making it very practical, and a 40-20-40 rear split folding design with a completely flat loading bay. You've also got a small little underfloor compartment which will suffice for setting a singular charging cable. My only complaint, however, is that the seats need to be dropped down from within the cabin, making them a little bit more cumbersome to use on a day-to-day basis, and there's also no place to store your bootload cover in the underfloor compartment, and as such you'll have to leave it at home or take it with you when you're on the move. Moving swiftly on, let's talk about seating comfort, and here I've got no issues whatsoever at the front or rear of the cabin. The seats themselves are very accommodating and soft. Better still, headroom and legroom has been optimized both at the front, thanks to the fact that you have got manual controls and a 4-way lumbar support, and even at the rear. Indeed, over here, legroom and headroom have been optimized for even taller sized adults, although it's worth noting that there is a transmission tunnel that's present, so therefore someone who sat in the rear middle seat might be left a little bit more uncomfortable, specifically on longer journeys. Now I do find it rather ridiculous, however, that if you want heated front seats, you'll have to go for the technology pack, which will set you back £1,395. And equally, if you want a panoramic glass sunroof and electronically controlled front seats, you'll have to splash out a whopping £3,895 on the Tech Pack Pro. Frankly, all of these should really be included as standard, specifically given the overall asking price of the Q3 TFSI. Now, the list of options don't stop there, because when you look at the exterior design of the vehicle, it can be customized, be it with the black edition or, of course, if you just want to personalize it. Here you've got 19-inch alloys that come fitted as standard, but if you want a different style, it'll cost you £150, or if you want the larger 20-inch alloys, you'll have to splash out £1,450. As for your paint finishes, it comes in white as standard. If, however, you want the metallic, a pearl, or the pictured solid pulse orange, it'll set you back £575. The premium and special paints will set you back a whopping £2,600 instead. Now, in terms of the overall design, I've got no complaints. I'll be curious to know what you make of the Q3 TFSI down in the comment section below. But personally, I do love its aggressive stance towards the front, and that's namely due to its bonnet and headlight design. Towards the side, you have got a really nice sporty flare, and that is in part thanks to its alloys. Although it would have been great to see body-coloured wheel arches and side skirts, but given that they don't protrude too much from the vehicle, I've got no real major complaints. And as for the rear, you've got that classic Audi DNA, with the tail lights and the integrated spoiler. Frankly, I really do love what the manufacturers achieved with the Q3, and I very much think it's a good progression over the previous generation models. Now, as for your overall towing capacity, it's rated at 1,400 kilograms to 1,700 kilograms for brake trailers, which is certainly impressive, but for unbraked trailers, this unsurprisingly drops down to 750 kilograms. As for your roof load capacity, it's rated at 75 kilograms. So past its exterior design, this brings me on to crash safety. And here the regular Q3 was tested in 2018 by Euro NCAP, scoring the full 5 out of 5 stars. Indeed, it scored 95% in adult occupancy, 86% in child occupancy, and 85% in its safety assist scores, which are very much impressive. However, it's worth noting over here that we're talking about the modern Q3 TFSI, so these scores aren't exactly relevant, but somewhat of a reference. Now, what can be talked about, however, are the driver assistance systems. And here you've got cruise control with speed limiter, lane departure warning, which can easily be toggled on and off by pressing a button on a stalk, which is very much appreciated, specifically if you live near the countryside. And you've also got Audi Presense and a camera-based traffic sign recognition system. Now, while these are all very much appreciated, it would have been further great to see adaptive cruise control, emergency assist, Audi side assist, and high beam assist included as standard as well. But alas, these are all comprised within the driver assist pack, which will set you back an additional £800. On that note, if you want a reversing camera, you'll have to splash out £1,395 on the Tech Pack, which I find completely ridiculous. And equally, if you want 360-degree cameras, you'll have to splash out on the Tech Pack Pro at £3,895. Given the overall price tag yet again of the Q3, I would expect some of these to be actually included as standard. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Nonetheless, over here, the vehicle is actually very easy to maneuver, with an 11.8 meter turning circle and good visibility at the front, side and rear. And this is also thanks to the fact that you have got a rear wiper and also rear parking sensors that come as standard. So with all that in mind, it brings us on to our verdict. And here the Audi Q3 TFSI is a very stylish proposition, both in terms of its exterior and interior design. You've also got plenty of tech within the cabin, really nice upholstery work, good amount of space for your rear occupants, and a practical boot. It's also very fun and engaging to drive, and also very comfortable, which is very much appreciated. The problem, however, is when it comes to its overall fuel efficiency, at least for the plug-in hybrid model. Now granted, if you have got the ability to plug in at home and you're doing shorter drives, then that added premium over the regular petrol Q3 might actually make sense. If, however, you're going to be doing longer drives, then you might want to consider either the petrol model or some of its competitors, from plug-in hybrids, full hybrids, or indeed fully electric vehicles, some of which we've reviewed and will be down description below for your own consideration. Now, we'd be curious to know what you make of the Q3 TFSI down the comment section below, and how you feel it compares to some of its main rivals. Now, if you have enjoyed this detailed independent review, definitely do consider dropping a like, subscribing and hitting that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. As such, I've been Chris from TotallyEV, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.